All right. It's been such an incredible first season of The Dirty Truth with Deante Young. Very, very excited about it. And never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that some of the things that's taken place in this first season would have taken place. But we are going to be on hiatus because we got to the end of season one on August 29th. And we are going to return on Friday, October 3rd. And I'm very excited about that. I've already been doing interviews with some phenomenal people. But just looking back at what we've accomplished, I just think it's very, very important to acknowledge it. Because if we don't know where we've been, then we don't know where we're going. And so we started off March 28th with this episode with Nina, and it was called Be Exactly You. So looking,
No, it was so nasty. It was so disturbing.
well, clearly he's very despicable and off-putting. You should have said, "Listen, this is not the Sean
I
Combs."
couldn't even text back. I couldn't even write
Wow,
back. Yeah.
wow, yikes!
Yeah.
this was good.
Yes, sir.
We go further into it.
Different people. One, your present self.
Mm-hmm.
God will be really God will be number one, but your present self will be number two. God will be number one, and your past self, because your past self is really where all the answers are. Because you went through all those types of things. You actually went through a lot of things, and life really does happen, for you as opposed to you.
Right.
So I just want to kind of pause this here. I remember when I first filmed this episode, I filmed it on a Saturday, March 15th, 10 days before me and Billy Badass got married. And I had so much equipment, it took me over an hour and a half to set up at her house. So we were at Nina's house, we were on location, and I had not done this kind of thing at this scale in a long time. But I'm very, very grateful for just having the initiative to start and not make excuses. I brought two computers over there. I brought all these cameras. I brought tripods, microphones, and it was a very tedious ordeal. But they always say that imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. I think that's the way it goes. But Nina was a great interview, and I had picked her weeks before that to be the guest for the first episode. And we had a really great conversation. Let's see here.
You like this? No, it was so nasty.
Sing one of his
Okay.
songs. Can you sing "If Only for One Night"?
You can see I'm just from head to toe. I got my black tights on. You can't even see any skin, but my hands and my head, But there are certain clothes that I don't vibe with. I don't like. I don't feel beautiful in that, and I don't feel comfortable or whatever.
So we talked about, as it says here in the debut episode, Nina, she joins me for a spirited discussion of her dirty truth, which included her insecurities concerning body dysmorphia, dating, and her fearless attitude concerning criticism in church of her fashion choices. And I kind of had something to get off my chest when I did this episode because a lot of the hypocrites in the world are located in churches. And I hate to say that, but it's a reality. And I've learned that now that I've been going to church consistently for about 4 years. That's never happened. And I felt like it was a great way to kind of get things off my chest when I was talking to Nina. That was really an important episode. The next episode, because we actually launched with three. So the Zach episode was also phenomenal. I recorded that on March 17th at the library in South Euclid Lyndhurst.
The first 2 years she was already had a boyfriend, and then but my junior year she would have been, single. And I struggled with self-confidence to the point where I thought to myself, who would want to be with someone who can't even stand on his own 2 feet?
So Zach is someone that I met back in 2022. And he is someone that I believe is a huge role model. You see what the description says, the cerebral palsy vigilante. That's the name that he calls himself. He's an author and speaker, and he discussed his dirty truth with me. Among the topics were coming to grips with his disability after a childhood filled with embarrassing questions from his peers and his desire to be around action takers. I really like the way that Zach approaches life because he always makes the rest of us feel like we are the ones that are disabled because he's anything but disabled with his mindset, his thought process, and just the way he takes action. I really, really admired every time I come converse with him, I admire it, and he's just a great guy.
So there are a bunch of different my cerebral palsy, the specific diagnosis is spastic hemiplegic, which means spastic tight muscles. So one of the things I encounter a lot, I have to make sure I stretch regularly. My hamstrings are especially tight, and then room for medical reasons to provide myself that private space I would need. And so when
And I guarantee you, you have a lot of people that you've inspired, whether it was in college, whether it's like you said, when you leave, you're pretty much Clark Kent when you're here, and then you turn into Superman when you go, or you're Bruce Wayne here and you turn into Batman.
it's
So the thing about that episode was it was so difficult to edit that episode because for whatever reason, I was getting a lot of glitches in as I was trying to render it and work in the process. I had to make so many different versions of it, just trying to assemble things together. And no one will ever know just how strenuous it was. But Zach is such an overcomer and he is such a light in the world that I just can't help but to say, Zach, I love every single thing about you. So his episode was very pivotal. It's one of the key reasons why I had him within the first three episodes. He's just that kind of impact player. So I also recorded this one, which is with Billy Badass, and this was on the same day that I did the Zach interview. And this one was her birthday was the day after that, March 18th. So we recorded this on March 17th, a couple hours or a few hours after I did Zach's episode. We were actually in Amish country when we did this episode, and it was a way for us to get more connected.
The relationship between me and my mother was just gone. You know, she would talk to me and it was just like, don't say a word to me. I hate your guts. Like, I want nothing to do with you. And like, it was more not only because she made me do this, but I was angry at myself because I allowed her to make me do it.
Yeah.
And then it was the whole thing, like I said, of it has to be kept quiet.
For that version of you because, like I said, you feel like you're alone in the world. So everything that happened the previous year, this is piled on top of that. And those things, you can't undo those things in your mind. You carry that with you forever.
Oh, you definitely
on
do.
some level.
I mean, I still to this day, and I'm going to be 51 tomorrow, still to this day, there's times I'll have dreams.
So this episode was, like I said, we filmed this at a place in Walnut Creek, Ohio. It was a really great place. They gave us the honeymoon suite, and I just I was very emotional, but I did it. Yeah, I had a job, and just hearing her talk about this stuff, it was very brave of her, and it actually got a lot of traction on social media once I put it out there in the world, and people were able to look at and hear what she had to say about the traumatic moments where she was 14 and was raped, and then 15 and was pregnant in a different situation and was forced to get an abortion against her will and was told all the wrong information. The thing about this show is that so many people relate to these topics. And that's what I really want to drive home to people. That's why this is important. That's why this is necessary because so many places it's not being talked about. And we need to talk about this.
Again, I did go through like a whole bunch of depression, sadness, anger, angry at myself, you know.
Okay, so you had these very traumatic things happen to you over the course of several.
So this was definitely a monumental episode. And I just we need to have more conversations. As I said in the episode, parents, we need to have two-way conversations, not one-way conversations where it's your way or the highway. Very proud of that episode. Um, and so that was the first three episodes that we did all, and it launched all three, launched on March 28th. Then I hung out with Brittany, and Brittany is so cool. We did an episode at the library and her episode, she just showed what an overcomer she is.
Being cheated on ain't cool.
Yeah, you got that right.
Being cheated, it sucks. It
Yes.
sucks real bad. That will do something, and I don't know. I can't talk for a male, but for a woman, that will do something to you because when you're constantly having to endure that and putting up with that, which ladies, I would not. Um, but when you're constantly doing that, you really start to look in your mirror. I really felt when Cardi B said in her lyrics, "You got me looking in the mirror different, thinking I'm flawed because you inconsistent." It really spoke to me because that really was how I was feeling. Like, dang, what else could I do better? To make you want to just be with me and me only. And truthfully, it's not necessarily about the person. It really is about who the person that's cheating. That's so yeah, if you don't tackle, that would probably be my biggest thing is people, if they don't tackle, you're not pretty, you're not this, you're not that, and you tend to believe it.
Yeah.
So, transferring that into my adulthood, really not too much had changed. Maybe I'm not, worthy of love, and maybe I'm not, gonna ever find someone that can truly be about me. And
So Brittany, she is the star of the Beauty Told podcast, and also she is a massive presence on the Pull Up Experience, which is the number one podcast in Cleveland. And I just love her spirit. And the great thing about her is that not only is she down to earth, but she helps people feel at ease with the fact of whatever their insecurity is because she's glamorous, she's intelligent, she's brilliant, she's gifted, she's all of these things. She's a role model, she's an influencer. And then to hear her be vulnerable, again, I always say that's the strongest thing you can be, is what people perceive as vulnerability. That's by far the strongest thing. And she is such a trailblazer in that sense because she's going to have a lot of people, and I'm sure she already does, who see her and look up to her.
so I do.
So that's an essential aspect of your personality.
Yeah.
And
And you really did some research on me. You
Uh,
might know me better than me.
yeah. Well, I mean, the people that I consider to be role models and world changers, I'm always full attention.
Okay. I'm not gonna lie, cute or not, like boy bad. But it was just his persistence of kept coming to me, kept trying. No matter how many times I keep saying no, you just kept coming, kept coming.
And so you have such a light
Yeah.
about.
Those red flags on someone or realizing your value and worth early enough where you don't have to go through the heartache and pain or
So she was talking about being cheated on, and that's something that every last one of us, whether we're beautiful, whether we're ugly, whether we're rich, whether we're poor, whatever the case is, we can all relate to being cheated on. And I just really appreciated Brittany because she really took time out of her schedule to really come and do this. And I met her 2 years ago when I was a guest on her and Brandon Gates's podcast, which is the Pull Up Experience, as I mentioned. And she's definitely one of the most important people in Cleveland. I for sure believe that, and will be in the world in no time. So that was a very important episode as well. Then I did an episode talking about my insecurities and just kind of, spilling my dirty truth. But the episode that just went crazy, as we predicted it would, was the episode with Eben Reed, aka the Toe Goat. He is a very valued friend, and his episode, as of this moment, is closing in on 10,000 views. So we did this in April. Actually, April 9th, it was Hugh Hefner's birthday, and then it premiered 9 days later on April 18th. And he is just such a gifted.
So hopefully we can swoop up on her and catch her off guard.
Or something like that, man.
No, for sure.
Yeah, this place is really powerful, man. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking time out from your superstar schedule. A long time coming, and usually there's something that is a spark to get you to a certain place. You know, everyone talks about, oh, how I had to overcome this struggle, that struggle, whatever. I know we were at church the other day, and it was they.
You feel me? I let a lot of people. I feel like I let a lot of people down. You know, especially my grandparents that raised me, because they ain't raised me to be the type of person I felt I had turned out. So that was one of my biggest regrets. And I used to pray to God, man, every day, like, man, if you just let me make it home to see my grandparents still living, you know what I'm saying, and let them see me, you know what I'm saying, put forth the effort to change my life. Like, I'm gonna do anything and everything that I got to keep that same energy. You feel me? Yeah. And God blessed me to come home. You know what I'm saying? And my grandparents were still living, and my grandfather, he was actually on his deathbed when I came home, though. You know what I'm saying? I think he had passed like 3 months after I was out. But I remember I came home. I got me a job. You feel me? And I remember, like, whenever I got a chance, I would go to their house, you know. He just knew everything, and people was like, he had this real, like, I ain't gonna say attitude, but it was just like I'm the man type thing, like, you know what I'm saying? So, but I don't know what made him take a liking to me, though.
So Eben is a genius, and he has about 4 million followers across all of his social media. And he was rewarded the 1 million follower subscriber plaque from YouTube. The thing I like about him is that his story is just so powerful. Normally, someone might think, oh, this guy just had everything handed to him. If there's ever a person that was never handed anything, it's Eben Reed, the toe goat, because his journey is he was very transparent. He spilled his dirty truth about how he was basically a knucklehead and just a wannabe and a follower for all intents and purposes, and then it got him sent off for 6.5 years of prison. And he immediately realized it was a bad thing. But the problem is that you can't get out of that. But it's also a good thing, because if it wasn't for that, he wouldn't even be the man he is today. That's why I titled it Prison Saved My Life, because it really did. He needed to go to prison to have a much better life. And for him to rise above everything and become a very committed entrepreneur, a very committed family man, a very committed husband, and really get his life in order, whether it's his credit or just his whole mindset and his belief in God, it was so inspiring. And this is an episode that was a flashpoint moment for me personally, because I received so much praise for this. And the thing that makes it good for me in terms of praise is not so much about that I'm so hot, but just the fact that people see value in me lifting other people up and sharing their story in a way that I uniquely can. Because even though Eben has been on podcasts before, he's been on interviews before, and he's been in the limelight, I was able to receive a big measure of congratulations because of how I conducted myself during the interview, and it meant a lot to me. But more importantly, like, he had something really important to say, and it served a lot of people, and he will continue to do that.
What it was, like, my grandmother had us in church, you feel me? And when you a kid, you don't really, like, understand, you know, why you be having to do this or why we doing this all the time, though, you feel me? But one thing I learned, though, and, like, man, once you raised up a certain way, bruh, it's like you always kind of come back to that, to, you know what I'm saying, like, stuff like that all the time, though, you feel me? All over the globe, like, reaching out to me, like, I'm like, this is wild, like,
Korea, I could just picture, hey, you're Togot. I like Togot.
man, bro, they sending me pictures. They tow trucks that look like cars. I'm like, man, this is wild.
That's
though.
what I'm saying. You're such a star, man. You know that's
Like, when you, it's like when you just know, man. Like, you know what I'm saying. Like, this probably the person I'm supposed to spend the rest of my life with, though. You know what I'm saying. Not to say everything is peaches and cream, though. You know what I'm saying. But when you got a person, man, where y'all can have a disagreement, you know, but then y'all can actually, like, sit down and talk it out.
Yeah.
you know, and y'all both on the same page, and y'all both just want to love each other. Y'all just want to just continue to just, you know what I'm saying, love each other life up, you know, because like I ain't had no kids when I'm like I say I don't have no biological kids though.
So Evan is a complete role model, and that was a big, huge moment in the show's early stages, and it will always be a flashpoint moment. Angela, she is someone that I met um, about 3 years ago, and her episode was phenomenal. She talked about being um, in the fall.
I did suffer with drug addiction for a bit. I haven't used anything besides marijuana since 2019, so I got away from that. I struggled with drug abuse. I've always experimented since I was 18. Just at parties with friends, nothing crazy, nothing that really stuck besides the marijuana. I don't even drink. But I was in an abusive relationship, with someone that was mentally, abusive, a bit financially, almost to a point you could say sexually, but a different type, you know.
So with this particular episode, I had the worst time trying to find a place to do this, but then I was able to settle on a place called the Charlton Abbot, which is about 3 miles away from here. Not far at all, and I paid $50 to do it, and there was a lot of um, situations that was just making it troublesome to be able to pull this off because things just wasn't working. We finally got it working, and it was a great setup. And at this point, I was really trying to find some consistency with getting episodes filmed and didn't want that to be this big, huge worry all the time. Like, where are we going to do this at? Where are we going to do that at? And Angela she was phenomenal. She came there after work and she did a great interview, better than we expected. But that's what I mean when I say giving people a voice. I have been telling her this for the longest time, and she delivered tremendously, and she was very grateful.
Um, Spread with any of my experiences is we all go through things, tough things. And, I've been at points in my life where I've felt really low, and I'm sure we all have. Some people have felt to the point where they didn't think that they were going to be able to go on, or they felt very hopeless, and there were times where I was like, what am I going to do, or in my brain, anyways, but I found an outlet being my children, and I have this board up next to my desk in my room, and even now, if I'm feeling a stress, my grandma, it is, and those are things I try to hold on to, the sound of their voice. I can still hear that and remember that, My grandma, she spent a lot of time with me as a child. She took me everywhere.
One thing that was really frustrating for me is that I left the house without sunglasses and I felt so naked. It's like I understand I'm gorgeous, but it's all about the effect. But Angela's episode was phenomenal, and she's such a great interview. And then we did one with, me and Billy Badass, why relationships crash and burn. Then we did one with um, our good friend Denise, and this was a monumental moment because this is the first guest that we had at our new office space, and this was so therefore it's kind of like a big moment just because of that. But Denise is great.
Guys, have you ever felt that your self-worth was tied to what other people thought of you?
I don't know how you would not be self-conscious. Right. Just constantly seeing other people who are better than you by society's version.
And doesn't it seem like it's always something every day that just brings you down?
You just have to look at things not as why am I going through this, but what can I learn from well, you know how they say on TikTok they'll say unalived because you can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, so I don't know what you're allowed to say, but.
And I will say one thing that I really like too. You also said that you don't heal your scars by giving other people scars.
Right. That's true.
And that's one of those things that obviously is kind of your operating system.
Yeah.
And so it obviously serves you well, and it's kind of your North Star as well, like your GPS.
Yeah, so. I can't even fathom the idea of being the cause of somebody else's pain.
Mm-hmm.
This episode was great. It was like such a great backdrop. We had just started putting this stuff together. Shout out to the wonderful, amazing Billy Badass. But I don't like the fact that this was out of focus, like her face was out of focus, and then all the things in the background that should have been out of focus is so clearly in focus. And that was such a sticking point, and that's what I get for not having a large monitor to monitor the look of it. But it's so much better than just not doing it. It's like imperfect action, but her words were the things that were so resonant. And she is such a wise person and a very old soul, and she just has a lot to bring. I just find myself wanting to have her on a panel and just talking all the time because she just has such a great disposition about things that she's gone through. And this was a great episode and a great reflection of just how intelligent she is and how much she extrapolates from the pain of life.
Much energy for me, and um, it's very easy to fall into that. That's
Well,
easy.
yeah.
But it's harder to figure out a way to get yourself out of it and to be positive and to find reasons to get up off the couch and do things and do your dishes and do the things that you need to do. That's lessons I learned was I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to have that personality trait. But it's still a lesson.
Yeah. And you're so good with learning how to kind of.
She's just exceptional. Denise is she really really shined her light on this podcast. Truly did. And then from her, we went to Shonda. Shonda's also another great friend, and Shonda's episode was fire. She was really vulnerable, and she exposed her dirty truth with all the things that she had gone through. It was amazing.
Has your life ever became so unbearable you just felt like ending it all?
But I ended up trying to take my life.
Has anyone ever tried to stop you from such a final decision?
But my mom was my next of kin, so she said, no, don't do it. He died and I didn't have a plan. So my plan was to do something with my life instead of being on the streets, because I grew up in the streets. I'm not gonna lie to you. I grew up in the streets, something that I'm not proud of.
Right.
But she made me think about what I wanted to do with my life. I couldn't swim, so the Navy really wasn't a good idea. We're gonna take care of you. You're going to collect 2 pensions, not one, but 2 pensions. A whole lot. Bottles. And I laid on the floor. That's all I remember. I laid on the floor and I just rolled out with my hands out like this. And my son woke up at 4 in the morning. This is the story they told me because I was in a coma for 3 days. When my son woke up at 4 in the morning, I was unresponsive. He couldn't wake me up. So he called my mom. He called my friend Marvin. Marvin lives in Bedford. Marvin got to my house in like 15 minutes from Bedford. Take my life. I got too much going for myself. I have a beautiful home. I have a brand new car. I have a beautiful son. I have so much going for myself. I'm not going to go the easy way out no more. It's not worth it. That's why I've been sharing my testimony with so many people. It has helped so many people. I just shared it the other day. This eerie feeling. So me and my son went to her house, and she wasn't answering the door. So we didn't get into the apartment. She was answering the buzzer, that you ring downstairs.
Yeah.
So we buzzed another apartment and was able to get in. I do the work for God. I don't do it for myself. I don't get glorification for myself. I get it for God, because God told me that he gonna save me for that reason.
So Shonda, she was in the military and was raped. She was a postal worker, and it was a lot of trauma there. She got married for a short time and was very abused, was abused by the cops. She tried to commit suicide, and her mother stopped her. And then her mother committed suicide years later. So Shonda's episode was a flashpoint. I also received a lot of accolades for this particular episode as well. But she really contributed. That was a high point of this first season, even though it was about such calamitous things. And so then I did some episodes where it was Me talking about my own personal journey in other ways, and then Billy Badass and I, she were talking about the terror of anxiety, and then we had this moment that really was probably the biggest moment of season one in terms of the magnitude of everything. Um, a guy named Steve and his wife Melissa. So Steve and her, they had been a couple since 2014, had known each other for way longer. And then Steve had been heavily addicted to all types of drugs. And he finally got clean in 2023. A year later, they got married. And then he had one lung. And earlier this year, he was told that everything was fine with his health and there was no cancer or anything like that spreading. And then sometime in April of this year, he was told that he just had a short time to live, 14 to 16 months. So he came to our attention because we did a live streaming video giveaway on May 20th. And then by May 25th, we filmed the episode just really what, 2 or 3 days before we left for our 9-day cruise. And the episode was wild and the timing.
Okay, Steve, let me get this straight. You are addicted to crack, heroin. You guys came from substance abuse in your family.
Yeah.
You overcame addiction. You eventually married your longtime girlfriend, and everything seemed like it was perfect. Perfect family. You're going to live the life of your dreams. You did a screening in February, was it? Yeah. And it showed nothing. And then within the last few weeks, you were given 12 to 16 months to live from stage 4 metastatic cancer. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You got to be kidding me.
No.
Of who we were, because it brings you to who you are now.
Yeah.
Now, going back to Melissa, you said that that was when you were, at that point when he was on the heroin, that's when you, so when you guys were getting together and you were aware of that, what was your whole perspective? Did you feel like this could work, or did you just feel like, like you said, you thought you could fix him?
Well, to be
So this episode is very emotional for me because I just think about, to me, Steve just looked great. But I'm not a great judge of someone who is really sick. But he had stage 4 metastatic cancer, and so many things was going wrong with him. Just days after this was filmed, he was taken in for um it was some type of brain surgery. And it just felt frightening just to have to be in that position, especially when you just got married, not even a full year before this. It was like about 11 months. And they were planning on going on a cruise in September, which right now is September. And then 14 to 16 months, that's a little bit of time. All he wanted to do was for his family to be taken care of, and but he was a fighter. And and then next thing I know, I did a lot of things to fast track this episode. It's at the last minute I decided, let's do this before we go on the cruise, because if we wait until after, he may not even be around, but still I felt like he would, but it was just something told me to just film it before because it was a very tight schedule for what we had to do before we went on the cruise. And then we did it on May 25th. And then while we were on the cruise, I was sending him messages on Facebook whenever I can get a signal. And it just seems like the news was getting progressively worse. Then June 6th, the last day of our cruise, the last full day of our cruise, we got the news that he died. Now, I worked tooth and nail to get the episode completed in the hotel in New Jersey so that by the time we got on the ship, I wasn't going to be able to do it because I needed high-speed internet to do it. So I had been editing it as much as I could in those couple days after filming it. And it's a long episode. It's an hour and 12 minutes. And I did all these things because I said, let's bring this out on June 6th. And so I had it scheduled. I did all that. I had it fully scheduled to release on June 6th before we even got on the boat. And then June 6th, it came out, and that's ironically the day that he died. And it just completely floored me and in ways I can't even express.
Honest, at first, did wrong.
She's my queen.
So okay, so yeah, that's important.
He's
Yes.
always treated me like
I
the
know
best woman in
it's swollen because of
the liver.
Yeah, liver right here. So
And
they
it's
have,
hard, like you can see it. It's hard.
they're gonna go in here. There's a spot over
I
here
don't know
too,
why they have a spot over there.
and I don't know if there's one over here. But
Unless there's something else they're not telling us. Yeah, there's a spot.
now. Of course, by the time this airs, you will have already undergone the gamma.
yeah,
The
I
gamma.
might be bald and everything by then.
The gamma
now.
knife. Well,
I've already done the gamma knife once.
You gotta
okay,
do it
now,
again.
I
His
mean-
hair's already falling out from the. His pillow will be covered, and he already is balding.
So everything. What all are you dealing with now as a result of this diagnosis?
I got gamma knife done like 3 weeks ago. So this week starts everything. It goes Tuesday.
Tuesday, my 40th birthday.
Wow.
What do
At
I
the
get?
hospital all day.
A human moment as you can possibly have.
Yeah.
And my empathy is overwhelming for you guys. I mean, she'll tell you I was talking about it to her in a text message last night. I was talking to her face to face when she got off work this morning because it really affected me because I can tell that you guys are really, really awesome people, you know?
I'm
And
constantly, you okay? You okay? You okay? Want to go to the hospital? You okay?
So I at the end of this interview, at some point, I did a prayer. We all bowed our head, and I said a prayer, and it just breaks my heart when I see this because I remember it so vividly, clearly. It was just a few months ago, and that this thing it happened the way it's devastating situation. But also, I feel so lucky and privileged that God brought me and put me in a position to be able to tell this story. Now, a lot of these other episodes, it was, about, making money and things like that, with your story and things and all that cool stuff. And then we had this episode with Harold Rags Crawford, and he is a costumer and has been for over 50 years in Hollywood, and that was great.
I was a young black man in Hollywood, unsupervised.
wow. Have you ever wanted to have a dream job and made so many mistakes in your life you didn't think it was even possible?
I didn't know what to do with the money I was making. Sometimes hand them out, homeless, broke.
Today's guest has been there and done that, and you will be very, very inspired by the one, the only.
You're going to be with Rock Hudson on McMillan and Wife this week.
No pressure, no pressure.
Oh my God! Fine, all right, I got. You know what I'm saying? And then and then when the studios went on hiatus, then that freed us up to do costumes outside, which was black exploitation movies.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of those.
So I did Cornbread All in Me. And so I had the privilege of working on a small movie once, and I was supposed to be a godfather. Had that number for me, 34.
Right.
34 years ago.
So, yeah, he died October 11th, 1991. Now, you said that you were on the set when that was about to take place. So, kind of walk us through how that went.
This was about Red Fox.
Red Fox was cool. We were friends. It's one of the things I like about being a costumer. I always say that. I think I've said that a few times. Is, you get with actors and you become friends, and that's pretty cool. So, he and I were that way, and he was naturally funny. He was bigger than life.
Yeah.
Even when when he walked on the sound stage. And just walked on the soundstage and turned around and looked at you, the way he would look at you, you just knew what was coming.
Yeah.
It was that kind of, it wasn't.
Because I know you said that you stumbled. I know you said that you made a lot of money, lost a lot of money. What was the nature of that?
Oh, that's a good question. Because there was so many things that happened to me.
And the thing about this is that, Harold and I, we have become good friends. I'm supposed to meet with him next week. And he intimated to me that he has never been in an interview with all the interviews he's been in over all these many, many decades where he told the dirty truth. And it was because I encouraged him and told him that, hey, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the way to be. So this was a really awesome interview. And he said he got a lot of love for this interview. Him and his wife, they couldn't thank me enough. But I'm the one that wanted to thank him because it was that important. Now, Jermaine, my best friend, his episode was next level.
Things had spiraled so much that you contemplated suicide and was very close to that. One thing that I absolutely hate is the way that when your wife found out about it, how she handled the situation.
And when I spoke to her, you know, it was pretty much, if you were going to do it, then you would have done it. If I was one of those ones who thought about doing it as with, you know, self-inflicted gunshot wound, it probably would have happened at that moment just to show her up. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for that phone call. You actually literally saved my life, because without that phone call, I wouldn't be here today.
Now, that episode garnered a lot of attention as well, and it was gut-wrenching for me to sit there and have the conversation with Jermaine because I went through the process beginning in 2020 with him just having so much anguish that was going on in his life. He's losing his marriage of almost 15 years, and then his mother is dying, and all those things kind of converge at one time. And he was just saddled with an enormous, unspeakably frustrating and unfair burden. And because I love him so much, I just hated to see him in that position. But the good thing is that it happened. We got this out, and I really believe that it helped him a lot. And it's going to help a lot of other people just thinking about all these things that he spewed. And also, we normalize men to be able to be vulnerable. We normalized it, made it okay for a man to be able to say, hey, I'm hurting, I'm crying, and it not be looked down as, oh, you're a punk, like toxic masculinity. No, that's the strongest thing you can do is show vulnerability in public.
Dirty truth for Deante. Things, and she told my mom that she would. But then when I brought it up to her, she kind of like brushed it off as, that's not where I am right now. I didn't say that. I just said I would try. And that was just hurt building on top of hurt, pretty much. And as you mentioned too, it did, all of that did start to cause issues with, family members and things of that,
Yeah, and it's so, to me, it's despicable because your family was more of a family to her than her family.
Absolutely.
And they loved her, they adored her to a point where it would have been almost imperceptible that she wasn't born into the family. That was the kind of love that I personally observed, and it's just crazy. So you lose your mom. That was devastating. That was calamitous. My heart just went out to you, especially with everything that was going on at the time with, otherwise. And then in the months after that,
cohesion. So it was something that I always practiced, since my kids were born, was things that I could do just to keep them on a straight and narrow path and make sure that they were all right. Not, trying to control anything, because reciprocated. And I do understand that the expectation or the bar can't be set to have somebody duplicate what you do.
So yeah, this was another powerful, powerful episode. I just can't put that enough into a reality of just how intense it was. And then we had the Defiant Widow, is the episode I called it. Melissa came back months after her husband died, and she was defiant. And I was worried that people would look down at her because of the fact of how she spoke about her husband once he was gone. But I understood it, and I felt like she was brave for that. It's a shame we have to call it being brave when you're just telling your dirty truth. But this episode was so phenomenal, and it just aired as of this moment right now, about 2 weeks ago.
I was living for him for a long time. I spent the last 25 years with dudes that have use me in some sort of way. Don't let somebody else hinder your dreams. He used meth to stop wanting to do heroin. He slammed me on the wall by my neck. But he never like hit me or anything. I think he was like, oh shit. My peace times were the times where he was in jail. I feel free for the first time in forever. Fake family, fake friends, like just I don't have time for you. I'm taking care of myself now. Stay out my inbox. I don't want to allow everybody else's problems or burdens to affect my life in such a way that I forget who I am again.
So powerful. Dirty truth. Is that like a death knell or something?
I think it's like in a nicer way, like an intentional overdose is the only thing that I could make sense of, you know? Mm-hmm. But so they started shutting everything off and they're like, we're going to take the vent out and they took off my entire existence. You know, I went to work, I went home, I paid bills. I used to call myself the mom bot because that's all I did. That's all I did was go to work and be a mom and take care of everybody else. And it was extremely draining and stressful.
COVID 100 times. He's had pneumonia. He's been in the hospital. He's had seizures to where he blacks out. And they're like, oh, you know, he's going to die tomorrow. We give it a week.
To tell everybody that might be going through a similar situation or even is currently in a situation, like, don't let somebody else hinder your dreams, or if they're not feeding your dreams or feeding into, you know, making sure you both are on that same level. You know, don't waste your time because life goes so much faster than you think it does. And I've heard that from so many like older people throughout my life.
So this episode is going to always be one of the greatest episodes that I could ever do. Season 1 was just a reaffirmation of how much I really enjoy conversing with people and getting to the nitty gritty and the dirty truth of their mind, their journey, and their lives. It's important work. And I just can't thank God enough for how much He has blessed me with being privileged enough for these people to share their innermost secrets, the things that bother them the most, their insecurities, their self-doubt, their limiting beliefs, the things that they might be afraid to say or ashamed to say or admit. I've been doing this for a long time. When I started doing A Date with Deante, my reality show, that was almost 20 years ago. And way before that, as a child, I was interviewing people, but this is something that my ambition is for it to become something massive and something very useful for people. And I think so far it always has and already has. But I really very much so look forward to season 2. And I hope that you anticipate it as well, because let's face it, we need each other and we need to share our dirty truths.